everybody, and welcome to the channel. It's Paulie Esther here, and during the anniversary live stream, Dead by Daylight said that one of the goals that they had going forward was to be more transparent, more communicative with the community at large, and part of that was going to be interacting with people on social media more. And so this week they set up an Ask Me Anything over on Reddit here. Join the Dead by Daylight team around the campfire and bring your questions about the upcoming chapter end transmission. Our AMA is live, and then they also took questions about other subjects. So I've seen a few people cover this where they have just gone over the highlights of the questions that were answered. But I'm going to go ahead and do the deep dive. We're going to go through everything. I think it's like 50 questions. No question too big or too small. We're going to go through it all here. And I'll read all of the questions that were answered by the devs here. All right, so here we go. All right, first one. Are there any plans to unlink currently linked sets for original characters? Short answer is no. The long answer is original characters' cosmetics are locked for technical reasons. Having them mix and match would cause bugs and a variety of clipping issues or gaps in their model at the waist or the necklines. Unfortunately, for these reasons, we have no plans to make them unlocked in the future. That was from Justin. So all these are answered by various devs from different departments. Next, the amount of representation in the game gets is great, but when will we get Ace Visconti actually representing Argentina? Dave answers, hey, good point. We've had a lot of fun with Ace's personality and used it as the main driver inspiration for his outfits. Some Argentinian representation would be great. Next. Are there ever plans to make totally new maps, but with the same realm as old locations? I'd love another map that uses the snowy theme of Ormond. Andre says that's absolutely something I would love to do. We don't have any plans to do so yet, but I'd love to add maps on a few existing realms. Ormond for sure, and Grave of Glenvale comes to mind as well. I would love that. Next, we have the Shrine of Secrets is used as a way to make all perks accessible to players who do not want to spend additional money for the game other than the cost of the base game. But with over 200 perks in the game now, that system is not a reliable way to acquire specific perks. This leads to arguments that players who are willing to pay extra are given an advantage over others, since meta perks can be locked behind the paywall of belonging to a specific character that you would need to pay for, such as Pinhead, for example. What are your thoughts on replacing the Shrine of Secrets with a menu of teachable perks that can be purchased at will for the same price they currently cost in the Shrine? What are the reasons that a system like that would not work? And Michael answers, I can definitely say that the problems with the Shrine are no secret. We are very aware that the system needs an update. However, it remains on the backlog for now, which means it's on our radar but not being actively worked on yet. We will hopefully get to it sooner rather than later. Yeah, this is a definite problem. As the amount of perks increases and you're only seeing like 2 Survivor and 2 Killer perks rolled out in the Shrine every week, it takes longer and longer for that specific perk that you might be waiting for to show up on the Shrine to get that RNG and get put in the Shrine. So they definitely need to focus on this and revamp that Shrine of Secrets. I agree. Next. Are we going to have sales on characters by the iridescent shards in the anniversary? Justin says, I'm not supposed to say because it's a secret, but yes. Behavior leaking their own info again. Shake my head. Sarcasm. That's funny. Revenge Jess asks, will behavior fix the visibility issues? My girlfriend is colorblind and can't see most colors. No, the colorblind features don't help her, so it's a bit depressing for her to realize that she's at a significant disadvantage when playing the game. Even for me, it's hard to see sometimes. Michael answers, we're definitely ramping up our attention to accessibility in our game. It's unclear if and how we will adjust our support for colorblindness in the near future, but I can say we have a dedicated UX designer heading up our accessibility efforts, and you can expect to see more accessibility-centered features coming out in the future. Next, Craig Brand asks, the Skull Merchant is a polarizing character currently. Are you happy with how Skull Merchant turned out? Do you plan on any future revisions for her? Michael answers, Skull Merchant has problems on live, and we are very aware of that. We feel the killer is fun and interesting in general, but there are some unfortunate playstyles that make her kit frustrating to play against. Two things to say here. She is getting an update. We are currently trying to determine when that can go out. Stay tuned. And two, her most oppressive games tend toward the 3-gen strategy. This is problematic in our game as a whole, but especially against certain killers, Skull Merchant being the most egregious. We're currently working on a systematic solution to deal with 3-gen games, which will also help with playing against the Skull Merchant. Nice, I like that. Mint Skull asks, the swamp had an unfinished map featuring a village structure as well as the Blood Willow tree from the art book, possibly related to the Wraith back when he was still part of the swamp realm. Is there any plans in the future to bring this map as a playable one in Dead by Daylight, maybe with a visual upgrade of the swamp? Andre answers, the tree will eventually make its return to the swamp. Nice. However, at the moment, we're focusing our efforts on bringing visual and gameplay updates to existing maps. In the swamp realm specifically, we're going to remove the generators in the corners of tiles, as well as some elevations that don't have a significant value add gameplay-wise. So I love to hear that they are working on the swamp. Swamp is the last of the OG realms that are waiting for this realm beyond sprucing up to bring it in line with all the other maps. I'm glad that this is on their radar. I know exactly the tree that Mint Skull is talking about. I actually have a video on my channel from, gosh, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, where I got a tour of those unused maps. If you want to have a look at that, I'll try to remember to link it at the end of the video here. All right, next question. Any plans on improving daily rituals? A permanent 60k blood point instead of the 30k we're getting now, and the ability to choose between survivor or killer rituals would be nice. Thomas answers, nothing concrete on the roadmap, get it, but multiple ideas have been explored to improve the system. Thank you for your suggestion. We're open to reading the community's ideas and feedback on the topic, and we'll be considering them when discussing next steps. Yeah, I always find that whatever role you play, the daily rituals tend to favor towards asking you to play the other role. So if you mainly play survivor, your daily rituals are usually killer and vice versa. So yeah, I mean, daily rituals can definitely be improved to make them more desirable for people to attempt them. Next, we have, why has the map team not advanced substantially in the balance department in the past few years? The community has been clear in that maps are unbalanced, yet it seems the dev team simultaneously understands the issue. For example, nerfing the Eyrie of Crows, yet releasing Red Forest 2.0. This is probably an Andre. It doesn't say who said it, but Andre seems like the map person. We began the work some time ago, but recently the speed at which we were able to push it forward has been greatly improved thanks to new hires and resources on our team. Now we're able to tackle urgent day-to-day tasks while simultaneously making regular progress on live balance for existing maps. Regarding the Eyrie of Crows, the intention of our balancing efforts was to address how strongly survivor-sided it was. We're still monitoring the results though, data and feedback, and we won't hesitate to go back for more tweaks if we feel that they're needed. When it comes to the Red Forest, we frankly just didn't have the resources at the time for the scope of work required, and now that we do, I've scheduled an update for both Mother's Dwelling and Temple of Purgation that will hopefully address player concerns. Nice. Agent Fuego asks, is it possible to get new Moris for killers as a customization option, not just tied to a skin? Justin answers, cries in backlog. So it sounds like to me, people say, what does this mean? So it sounds like to me like this is something on their to-do list, but not being actively worked on. I will say, however, that Matthew Cote has confirmed that the Naughty Bear skin for the Trapper has a exclusive Mori tied to that skin. So if they can make it so that when you play as Naughty Bear, he has a different Mori, it should in theory be possible to have different Moris equipped, and the game would detect what Mori you have equipped just as it detects that you're playing as Naughty Bear, so it would execute a different Mori for that character if you had it equipped, right? So the potential is definitely there. Next we have Upstairs Curve. Could you guys do something like a shirt related to Puppers in honor of him and what he brought to the Dead by Daylight community? Ooh, I haven't read these ahead, so this caught me out of the blue. Puppers' passing has been a huge loss for our whole community and has been deeply felt here on the team. We have seen the discussions amongst players on how best to remember him and honor him, and we've been following it closely and have been similarly discussing it with the team. While we have a strong desire to do something, it's simply too soon right now to say what we might be able to commit to. Honestly, I'm just so happy that Puppers lived to see the day when they put the Warrior Puppers charm in game, and if that's all that happens, it's enough for me. But if something else happens, I would certainly welcome it too. Cankle Dankle says, question for the art and design team. In the lore of Hux and Gabriel, it mentions that Gabriel damages Hux pretty severely directly before they're taken into the fog, with flesh melting off his frame. Is the look for the singularity we see in the game the result of that damage, or is that pre-face melt? If it's the former, is there any chance we might see Hux's original perfect design he had for himself as a skin, or was the lore even fully complete while you were working on his design? Dave says Hux's look in the trials is post-melt incident. We want to make sure we offered a good level of body horror with this character. We might see its prime look later, but keep in mind that even this would be horrid. The singularity is using flesh in a very wrong way. Horror Fan says, do you think we can get outfits based on the later Halloween movies, or does the copyright prevent that from happening? I've been wanting an older Jamie Lloyd from Halloween 4 to get as a legendary skin so bad. I made a petition about it and even asked the actress herself about it. Dave says, thank you for your passion and dedication. Indeed, working on getting licenses can be a challenge. Thank you for your response and for making a great game I play so much. So, my understanding is that the license that Dead by Daylight has is tied completely to the original Halloween movie only. So, it would require some other exploration to get Jamie Lee Curtis as an older skin or things like that. But now we've seen things like Nicolas Cage being signed in. Maybe a Jamie Lee license would be something that could happen. But as of right now, the way things stand currently, we only have the original Halloween movie to draw from. Now, having said that, with the ability to change characters into different people that we have now in the game, there's really no excuse why we don't have Dr. Sam Loomis as an alternate legendary skin for Laurie Strode in Dead by Daylight. So please make that happen. I know you can do that. It's under the umbrella of the license of the Halloween movie because Sam Loomis appears there. All right, next. What's the process for figuring out general balancing and new perks as the game continues to add in new killers and survivors? Thomas says the process is naturally data informed, but the major part lies with the design team, who's aware of what comes next, whether it's perks, killers, or any other feature that will impact gameplay and balance. In short, if a perk is both ubiquitous and powerful, it probably needs to be addressed in the near future. Giant Sweet says, I think many people would agree with me in saying that Hillbilly needs some add-ons adjusted, but also, why is the overheat mechanic still a thing? It's pretty much a non-factor, and there are add-ons to increase the overheat limit anyway. Michael says, I feel you. Billy occupies a squishy, albeit violent place in all our hearts, and we've been working on him. An update has been designed for our Billy Boy, including his add-ons. No specific date planned for implementing this just yet, but you can expect news from us sometime in the next year. Sharpen your chainsaws. Sci-Pi says, are there any plans to update earlier licensed killers like the Shape, the Cannibal, the Nightmare, the Pig with their own music tracks, as has been a trend with other killers as of late? Given Ghostface being licensed and receiving a unique chase theme last year, there's been confusion regarding this. Thank you. Dave says, we would love for all the killers to have this feature. Nevertheless, licensed content will sometime have limitations out of our control. We might get a track for all of them at some point, but no promises. Shape already has a unique music track, so enjoy that in the meantime. Michael Myers. Is there any, Cheese Grater says, is there any discussion regarding raising killer field of view or a field of view slider to help reduce motion sickness for those affected? Short answer is yes. Long answer, we have a design that is in development and the release date is in our field of vision. You can expect to see something later this year or early next year. Thank you, Michael. So field of view is something that you can adjust to either zoom in or zoom out of what your character can see from their point of view. And some people who experience motion sickness might want to dial the slider one way or another to ease that. So I love that Dead by Daylight is focusing on more accessibility concerns. Next. Oh, this is the team. Hizwadi asks, will there be a shift away from relying on pure statistics and instead listening to experienced players more with qualitative feedback in general? The statistics-based approach for balancing has been a huge pain point for the past 7 years. Thomas says, while data is crucial in balancing in general, it is not a substitute for player or design feedback. Our approach to balancing is a bit more complicated than this, and I can say it does not solely rest on game design. Swagmania says, will the black bubble after hooking someone be addressed soon? I like the effect, but in a ton of scenarios, I cannot see if the killer is going towards me, even with the effect of Kindred. Dave says, the intention of the bubble's design is to hide the killer's exact position after a survivor has been hooked. However, it is an old design, so maybe it's time for us to review if its use and appearance are still ideal. Just echoing what a few others have said, a few chapters ago, it was randomly changed to also hide auras, even though it originally didn't. There was no patch note documenting the change, so everyone has just assumed that it was a bug that has not been fixed. Next, Agent Fuego asks, how does the entity choose its victims, both survivors and killers? Dave says, who knows? Meteor alternative, no one knows how the entity or why the entity or even when the entity. Maybe darkness in the life of the survivors and killers grab its attention. Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe it's the entity's attention that makes their lives miserable. Or maybe it's random. Who knows, Dave? Spicy alternative. The entity works in mysterious ways. We got 3 answers from Dave. Mostly, who knows? Cheese Grater asks, amidst the PTB testing, there were a few concerns regarding Made for This, particularly in regards to its interaction with Hope, allowing survivors to keep pace with the 110% speed killers like Hag during the endgame. Is this something the team is aware of, and will they be continuing to monitor Made for This for balancing purposes? And the chapter is live. Thomas answers, we are aware that Made for This has had quite an impact. We're going to be watching out for feedback and data once the community has an opportunity to test this. We already have plans to address Made for This, like we had for Hyperfocus, if and when it becomes a problem. R6G Anon says, can you tell us a bit about the process the team goes through when deciding to nerf or buff an add-on? It feels so frustrating to see certain add-ons getting a nerf for being popular. For example, the Twins Toy Sword, Nemesis Marvin's Blood, Hillbilly His Engravings, when the other add-ons are so weak and situational that they are rarely worth using. This is a question that has been considered heavily within our design team in the recent months. We're continually learning where our priorities need to be when it comes to life balance, and our process is changing as a result. Recently, we have shifted to an approach that rests on 3 foundations: design intent, community feedback, and data and statistics. We watch for issues on all 3 of these fronts and prioritize from there. We're also cautious about vetting our changes with the community management team to get a read on how our updates will be received before release. Some decisions, especially those based more on data or design intent, may not always be 100% clear for everyone, and that's okay. That said, we want to be attentive to the needs of our community and what will be most healthy for the game long term. Wild Paleontologist asks, is there going to be an update where survivors can always recover from the dying state, like the one-off with Unbreakable? I think I remember reading about that once. Cheers. Yeah, this was the base kit Unbreakable. Michael says, I can tell you're dying to know. Never mind. No, we are not planning on making that part of the base game. If you're referring to the finisher Mori, we tested that in the PTB, but it was an early prototype test. There was a lot of feedback, and we're still working on that feature. But again, we're not planning on putting Unbreakable in the Survivor base kit. A very good answer there for the community to know what the future of that is. Ali Shock asks, for original chapters that take place around different nations, Chile, Japan, Brazil, among others, and even around different periods of time, what's the process like for the research and implementation of different elements to properly represent that in the lore and even inside of their respective maps? Dave says, inclusivity and diversity is always top of mind for us, with a focus on making sure the representation we have in the game is as accurate as possible. We have multiple steps in our creation process that ensure due diligence in this regard. Internal and external consultation with regional partners, extensive research, and immersion are some of them. An excellent example would be with Thalita and Hanatu characters' cosmetics, which were designed by our very own Brazilian artist. Fun fact, she's the one who thought of including the Caramello tattoo on Renato's arm. Huh. Interesting. Cankle Dankle asks, man, look at all these people who got more than one question answered. Lucky. In the past, the team has stated that maps take by far the most development time out of anything else in the game. How long does it usually take to make an original map such as Toba Landing, Devarka Deepwood, from concept to completion? Also, how difficult is it to modify maps once they're in the game, such as adjusting the strength of loops, changing the tile spawn logic, or even changing the size of the map? Andre answers, to answer your first question, depending on the style of the map, it can take up to 6 months to create. When it comes to updating and modifying existing maps, we collect data non-stop and are always investigating player concerns. To use Toba Landing as an example, player feedback during the PTB helped us identify and implement certain adjustments on loops and map visibility that will be going to live servers. Utah Raptor says, all I have to say is thank you for making this game, because without it, we would not have this unique community. Andre says, thank you for being part of it. We feel really grateful to have such an engaged, creative, and supportive community of players. Thank you. You are the legends. Andre's Tezumo says, can you please hide Survivor prestige levels until the end of the match? A lot of killers target and harass high prestige level survivors. Justin says, harassment in-game is a topic we're always looking for more ways to tackle, and this has been one of the ideas we've been discussing for some time. I'm going to use this question as an opportunity to reignite the topic and open a new Jira request for it today. I don't know what that is. But, yeah, I don't think we need to see prestige levels, personally. I would like to see them hidden. Paradoxical Yup says, as the game continues into its 7th year, I think the community deserves an official comment from the devs on the flagship killer, the Trapper. The character who is on most, if not all, advertising and is perhaps the most recognizable killer in all of Dead by Daylight's original roster, has been the worst killer in the game for years by an increasingly significant margin. I don't know if I'd go that far, but he's definitely not the strongest. Unlike any other killer in the game, his power requires full minutes of setup, can be easily countered by good communication, and depending on the map, can just entirely cease to function due to no or sparse or thin grass. Most of the maps released in recent memory have no grass whatsoever. Have you seen the new map at Toba Landing, by the way? And are so large that it can add an additional minute or two just retrieving your power, which again, no other killer has anything close to that level of setup time. All of that to say that for the Trapper, things just seem to be getting exponentially worse with every update. Does the dev team have any plans on reworking or updating the Trapper, which in my opinion he desperately needs, or will he stay the undisputed worst killer for years to come? Michael says, I hear you. It's been a topic of conversation across our teams, but at the moment we do not have any significant gameplay updates planned for the Trapper, partly because our data shows that his kill rate is pretty much where we want it to be on average, even at high MMRs, but also because he holds a very important role as one of the simplest and easiest killers in the game. He's great for onboarding new killers, and we don't want that to change too much. That said, we do have a small but very fun update in the works for our terrifying flagship killer. Those of you who watched the anniversary broadcast may have seen the segment about Naughty Bear legendary skin coming for the Trapper, which will have its own unique Mori. Aha! As I told you, this will ship later in the year along with a killer update. Thank you, Michael. All right. Old Supermarket says, any unique items for survivors? Michael answers, it just goes to show you how brilliant minds think alike. We've been discussing this very recently. No concrete plans as we're still very early in the process, but we are talking about when and how we could put out some new items in the future. Plan on it at some point. One thing that I've always said, we've made videos about this, is we'd love to get some form of an energy drink, a beverage that survivors could drink to, you know, get rid of their exhaustion or things like that. The Pustula Pedal Punch, right? That energy drink. We'll see what happens. We'll love new items, though. Dr. Panda asks, what's the meaning of life? Mandy says it's 69. Andre says it's 420. Michael says it's a great Monty Python movie. And Unknown says, satiate hunger. That had to be the entity's answer. Okay, Definition asks, any updates on console to PC cross progression? This is something the community sorely wants, and they're always asking me for updated information on this. I never have any answers for them. There's currently no further update, unfortunately. We know it's something desired by the community as a whole, but we cannot say if, when it will ever be able to be implemented other than on the platforms that we've already confirmed. Can you elaborate further as to why? No, they do not. So this all has to do with getting the different consoles to agree to do it. I know that like Epic had to pay Sony a big fee just to get it done. So I don't know. It's all a money thing between the console companies not wanting to miss out on money. If it was up to Dead by Daylight, purely their choice, it would have been done long ago. But it's all up to the console companies to agree to it, and some of them are afraid they're going to lose dollars if they do it. It's just that simple. Why Are You Laughing says, thanks for doing this AMA. In the recent public test build, you guys tested out a buff to Pyramid Head, which gave him the ability to torment survivors by survivors hit with Punishment of the Damned. You guys understandably walked back this buff as it allowed for some unfun situations for survivors. In the following developer update, you revealed the reason for testing this change was that you were looking for additional ways to let Pyramid Head apply Torment. This would lead me to believe that the balance team has been looking to buff certain elements of Pyramid Head's kit. I would also be kicking myself later if I did not take this opportunity to mention his add-ons. Pyramid Head's add-ons, aside from the range add-ons, do not feel like they impact his gameplay much at all when compared to other killers. His iridescent add-ons, while unique, are too restrictive in the requirements to get much value out of them. If you're looking to do something to Pyramid Head, which is the impression I got from the recent PTB, it seems that the add-ons would be the first thing considered. So, can we expect any more attention to the Executioner going forward? Are you happy with the spot he and his add-ons are in? Michael says, you are correct that we initially wanted to change Executioner because we believe he can be improved. That hasn't changed, and we still want to release an update for him in the future. Your suggestion about looking to the add-ons is noted. One thing that I would say is, while they're always looking to balance certain killers, one thing that dawned on me is Behavior is working on the new Silent Hill game, and maybe some of this attention to Pyramid Head to pump him up, make him a little more powerful, would be, is there a Silent Hill 2 chapter coming in the future? And at the same time that they would want to bring Silent Hill 2 into the game, they also want to buff the Executioner for the first Silent Hill Chapter 2. I don't know. Something to think about here. Is there a reason just beyond game balance that they want to make changes to Pyramid Head? Roro Roxor asks, regarding individual killer balance, will you start taking feedback from people who have spent countless hours playing them, if at least to see what they want out of their killer without being unbalanced? Michael says, our external playtesting methods and processes involve a large variety of player types, all of which range widely in skill level and experience in the game. Veteran players with many hours in DBD have super valuable feedback especially when it comes to breaking our rules and exposing balance issues. It's important to point out, though, that beginner, intermediate, and casual players also have important contributions and insights to share that we need to also take into consideration and use to balance our designs. Absolutely Buddy asks, what caused the sudden shift to add more clutter and obstructions into the new maps and reworks? In my experience, it causes nothing more than frustration for both sides. Dave says, hey, great question. As clutter, you might be referring to two different things, so I'll do my best to answer both meanings. Clutter as in more objects, making navigation more difficult. As our team grew during the graphical rework, a lot of details were added to make the maps richer. Lots of lessons were learned during those days, and we're still learning on what elements and metrics makes it difficult for navigation. Our level design team is actively working with the environmental artists to make sure each asset found in a map, colliders, vegetation, etc., especially when it comes to navigation, follows game metrics. 2. Finding objectives and visual clutter. As the graphic fidelity evolves in Dead by Daylight, so does our gameplay need to evolve in terms of visual elements, which have not always followed. We're looking into that one now. The idea is to have level of priorities in how easily perceivable elements are on the screen. This pass will make gameplay elements pop compared to the details that are great, but less important to manage your objective. Andre says, from the level design perspective, we're in the process of addressing the clutter issue. The focus is clarity, readability, and navigation. We had this issue with the Toba landing in PTB, and we're addressing that in the next week's release. We'll revisit all maps and themes and make sure it makes sense for everyone. Utz Darva, who's that? You ever heard of that guy? Are there any plans to make custom games easier to set up for tournaments and other events? It's been years since the introduction of custom matches, and we haven't really had any new settings since. Options to limit item and add-on rarities, options to enforce non-duplicated perks on all survivors, better spectator controls, etc. Any of these things would really help to make DBD events faster to set up and more viewer-friendly. Justin says, this is a topic that has recently made it onto our radar and one that we can clearly see the value in. The custom matches feature has been left untouched for far too long. Unfortunately, it's still too early to give an ETA on when you could expect to start seeing some of these improvements in the game. One of the things you'd like to see is no RNG in the way that the tiles would spawn on the map. You would want to have like a custom setting so that every time you went to, let's say, the coal tower, it would be exactly the same generator placement, exactly the same pallet placement, etc. No RNG, so that the teams would all be playing with the same map. That was one thing that you would really need if you were going to set custom matches to for competitive DBD events. Next, we have Rog Argues with Himself says, will there be any plans to have more diversity in body shapes of survivors? I would love to see some more plus-size representation. And Dead by Daylight answers, inclusivity and representation is very important to us. Body shapes and height is quite challenging at the moment due to technical limitations and gameplay components and metrics. Thank you for letting us know that this is important to you. Every voice counts. Cankle dankle, cankle dankle, stop taking all the question slots. The Mori for the singularity is probably the most that a survivor has actually been maimed. It's brutal, disgusting, and I absolutely love it. However, it has been previously stated that Moris have to avoid actually doing too much damage to a survivor's body for various reasons. Is this still within those limitations, or did something change that allows the team to make more brutal Moris? And can we expect the possibility for some more of that brutality in the future? One thing such as decapitations is a no-go in certain countries, so those are, some limitations that Moris definitely have. That's why, the Demogorgon just gives it a little shake and then spits it out instead of popping that head off altogether. Dave says, we're glad you love the Mori, and we do too. It was a blast to create. On the level of brutality and gore, there is one thing that we keep in mind except for the actual technical scope feasibility of an idea. One of DBD's core pillars is that we want to be a horror that is accessible to all. This means many things for different facets of the game, but in this case, it means that some brutal actions and level of gore may make the game inaccessible in some regions, and we don't want that. That alludes to the decapitation thing that I mentioned before. Ragicus says, was there anything noteworthy that stuck out to the team when designing the Singularity? I love his design and would like to get to know more about how he was designed. Well, you see, someone spent the weekend and they watched Jeff Goldblum in The Fly and Short Circuit with Johnny Five, and they said, why not put these two things together? No, I don't know. Let's see. Yannick says, it was a weird concept, and it's not an easy sell as a great power originally. It sounds bland on paper. Although, while prototyping it, we managed to make the pods usable in chases and realized their versatility. That's when it started to shine. We could see how much fun and potential there was in the concept. Patrick Dearden says, is there a reason more Survivors emotes haven't been added yet? It feels like a no-brainer since you could make a fortune from selling them, and it's not like it'd break immersion since this game is long past that point now. Look at some of the Survivors and even the killer cosmetics. I feel like even small things which could be sold like hand gestures and stuff would be such a nice addition with time. However, things like dances would be amazing. Even better if Killer could dance too at some point. Oh my. Justin says, Survivor emotes was an idea we played with many years ago. We even got so far as to implement a few of them in a prototype build. Unfortunately, we found them to often break immersion or encourage negative gameplay behaviors. And for that reason, we haven't revisited the idea for a number of years. Never say never, but Survivor emotes certainly won't be coming anytime in the near future. Huh? Wait a minute. Like, they just announced that they introduced 2 new Survivor emotes on mobile with the approve and disapprove. Like, I want to clap for my fellow survivors when they do it, Jen. Or you know, if the killer's Morian somebody, I want to go, no, don't do that. So I don't understand this. It doesn't make sense that, you know, mobile is getting these 2 simple approve and disapprove emotes, but they're saying no emotes anytime soon. Weird. Webkins asks, will mobile cosmetics be ported in anytime soon? And Justin answers, we will start porting some mobile cosmetics over starting sometime in the next year. The first batch will be small with just 4 outfits, 2 for Killer and 2 for Survivor. Also worth noting, they won't be a one-to-one port. We'll make some small color and or texture changes before being brought into Dead by Daylight. And lastly, to manage expectations, there will be some mobile outfits that never get ported over. This could be a video in itself. My friend Wheat has collected all of the mobile exclusive skins, so I can show you everything that they have on mobile that we don't have on core. So I'm very happy to hear that they're planning to port some of those over. All right, we're in the home stretch here now, folks, I promise. Has it been considered to clean up some of the more useless offerings on the blood webs, such as the ones that only slightly buff blood points? Michael says, we're actually exploring the offerings and their system as a whole right now on the design team. I can't give you any hits about what might be changed or where we might end up yet, but we're exploring new effects and actively designing ways to make this system better overall. I would like to see map offerings addressed. I feel like they are too powerful. Gay for David says, with the seemingly new trend of original licensed survivors getting lobby voice lines, can we expect to see this implemented for previous survivors as well? So survivors like Dwight, Meg, Claudette, David, etc. And would this include the possibility of original survivors interacting with each other, similar to the Resident Evil survivors and Renatu and Thalita? Never say never. Dead by Daylight is a game in constant evolution, and past content is still thriving and evolving with it. That's from Dave. Next is Zvox. Has there ever been any thoughts of adding alternate game modes or queues? Of course, this would be a massive undertaking, but I'm curious if it's ever been given any real thought. A ranked mode or a mode with different rules like a draft, picking perks, or anything, honestly, would be really cool to see. Justin says, it's an idea that has been always in the back of our minds. I can confirm this is something we're actively prototyping. We plan on starting small and doing game modes and limited time modes and building up from there. We're hopeful that we'll have more to share with you all later this year. Very exciting. Yeah, game modes is always something that in the past they said that they didn't want to do it because there weren't enough players and they were afraid of splitting the player base, but now maybe we have enough players to explore stuff like this. Love to see what they would have in store. Squid Child says, are there any plans to rework or change Freddy in any way? Michael says, I can't give you any super secret details, but I can tell you that he's on our radar for Killer's update. Nice. Cheese Grater asks, thanks so much for doing the AMA. Happy anniversary. Out of curiosity, were there any other concepts that the team was considering as powers for the Singularity before deciding on the biopods, or was this what they set their sights on right away when brainstorming? Yannick says, the pods were in the concept from the beginning. Originally, the Killer had two mechanics it could use. One involved shooting the pods to teleport to survivors, and the other one allowed it to shoot survivors to teleport them to its location. Ultimately, it was deemed exceedingly disorienting on the survivor side, so we removed it and brought back more opportunities for the Killer to teleport later in the creation process. Cankle Dankle's taking all the question slots. How long from concept to release does it take to design a full Killer, not including perks, survivor, or map, but just the Killer and their power? Yannick says it fluctuates depending on the weather, but in general, about 11 or 12 months overall from start to finish. Top adhesiveness. What is it about the new survivor, Gabriel Soma, that makes him stand out from his fellow survivor cast? Well, one thing, he was lied to, and he doesn't really have a family. They implanted all his memories. It's so sad. Gabriel is purposely designed so that most of us can relate to him, even though he lives in a time period that is very otherworldly to us. The hardship he faced even before going in the realms of the entity, his resolve and resourcefulness make him a fun character to play. Gabriel is also our first survivor from a possible future, making his wardrobe quite unique and pretty cool if you're into sci-fi pants and space shirts. His story is not over. There are more unrevealed truths about Gabriel, and he's very good looking. Shirtless Gabriel when? Oh my gosh, Dave. Yours, Reina, asks, what was the real reason you removed Maurice initially? Yes, let's get down to the conspiracy stories. I'm with you, Reina. Let's do this. I know it's a pretty unserious question, but I've always been curious. Honestly, when Peanut saw the Dredge's Lobby animation with the suspiciously familiar-looking horse head flopping out, he jumped on the opportunity. He posted that animation on our social channels with a caption that read, Maurice, no! And the community's reaction was immediately huge. So much so that we decided to push the joke all the way, removing Maurice from the game. And the rest, as you know, is history. Thank goodness we got Maurice back, Justin. All right, Rider Ranger. My question in particular is about map design. I primarily play Killer, and sometimes it feels like the outcome of a game is decided before it even starts, depending on what map I end up on, either when chosen via offerings or by RNG. When designing maps, what, if anything, is done with structure and layout to make maps fair for both sides? Andre says, the intention when we create maps is not to favor one side more than the other. This is why we currently want to rebalance the maps. We're using data collected and feedback that we get from the community. We have started in the last year to rebalance the maps, and we're going to continue and be active when it comes to maps that already exist with the same and newly released maps. We want to bring the best experience for everyone to enjoy. Example, the Raccoon City Police Station, Split, the update in the Junkyard, and soon farm maps. Thanks, Andre. Chin Chili says, whatever happened to the Promised Twins rework? Good question. It was talked about to be the next Killer update after Legion Ghostface, though we haven't heard anything about it, and as far as I know, Twins are still plagued by many bugs as well. Michael says, due to limited space in each release and the unexpected complexity of the update needed for the Twins, the update has been delayed a lot longer than we wanted. However, it's been designed and we're working on releasing something in early 2024. Wow, we actually got an ETA for that. Woohoo! Cankle Dankle's taking all the question slots! Actually, it's just fun to say Cankle Dankle, so... No, I'm not picking on you, Cankle Dankle. In the past, the team has stated that there would only be humanoid killers in the game. Obviously, with the Stranger Things license, a killer could not really be humanoid, especially given the seasons released at the time. However, with the release of the Dredge and now the Singularity, we've now gotten a few original monstrous killers. What changed with the design philosophy of DBD that allowed this to happen? And can we expect further creative visual designs like them in the future? Well, I'm not saying this is a lie, but the fact we said we would only do humanoid was not a design philosophy, but more because of the technical scope and limitations at the time. If you've been with us a while, you'll remember us saying that we'd put Christine the car and Cujo the dog in DBD if we could. Every worthy, bloodthirsty creature has a space in the world of the entity. So what allowed us to do so? We leveled up. The team is bigger, more experienced, all thanks to the growth of the community, of course. Characters with different structures are definitely going to happen again as we continue to explore more possibilities in DBD. Wow, I love that, Dave. Sounds good. Okay, so I think that's it. So if you're wondering who it was that was in the AMA, we had Dave Richard, the Senior Creative Director, Michael Nielsen, the Lead Game Designer, Andre Laniel, the Lead Level Designer, Thomas DeRosier Dorval, Game Designer, Yannick Neveu, the Game Designer, and Justin Brown, Product Director. So that's all I have for you with the Ask Me Anything. I know it was long. Thanks for sticking with me through all of this. And as always, I appreciate the time you spend here with me on my channel. And don't forget to take care of each other in and out of the fog. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
It's a Gen Rush life for us. It's a Gen Rush life for us. Set a hiding, we do gens. Set a randoms, we got friends. It's a Gen Rush life